Okay, for problem 9-1A, that is on page 342 in your textbook, and it is work paper 291. So I'm going to read the instructions for 9-1A. It says that portions of the payroll register for Barney's Bagels for the week ended July 15th are shown below. The SUTA tax rate is 5.4% and the FUTA tax rate is 0.6%, both of which are levied on the first $7,000 of earnings. The Social Security tax rate is 6.2% on the first $118,500 of earnings. The Medicare rate is 1.45% on gross earnings. So they give you a portion of the payroll register, but all they give you is the total of the total earnings column, the total of the taxable for unemployment compensation problem, and the total of the taxable for Social Security. So they ask you to calculate the employer's payroll taxes expense and prepare the journal entry to record the employer payroll taxes for the week ended July 15th. So as we work this problem, calculating the employer payroll taxes, I'm going to tell you to refer back to page 321 in your textbook, because that provides you the 6 steps for calculating the employer payroll taxes and recording the entry. So step 1 in the process is to obtain the totals for the total earnings and the taxable earnings columns for Social Security and unemployment compensation. So in this problem, those 3 amounts are given to us. Here's the total of the total earnings. Here's the total that's subject to unemployment taxation, and here's the total that's subject to Social Security. Okay, and then step 2 on page 321 says compute the amount of employer Social Security tax by multiplying the Social Security taxable earnings by 6.2%. So here's our Social Security taxable earnings. So for step 2, Social Security tax, we will multiply the $12,500 times 6.2%, and our Social Security tax is going to be $756.40. Okay, so then we'll look at step 3 on page 321, and it says to compute the Medicare tax by multiplying the total earnings times the Medicare rate of 1.45%. So our total earnings by 1.45%. So 12,200 times 1.45% is going to give us our Medicare tax. I don't know if you can see that. Okay. So our Medicare tax is $176.90. Okay, and then we'll go to step 4, which says compute the FUTA tax. And it says to compute this by multiplying the unemployment, the taxable amount for unemployment compensation times 0.6%. So here's what's taxable for unemployment, $10,500. So we're going to multiply that, 10,500 times the FUTA rate of 0.6%. And so our FUTA tax is $63. All right. And then step 5 says to compute the SUTA tax. And you will do that by multiplying the unemployment taxable earnings times 5.4%. So again, we're going to use the $10,500, what's taxable for unemployment, and we are going to multiply that times the SUTA rate of 5.4%. So our SUTA tax is $567. Okay, and then step 6 says prepare the appropriate journal entry by using the amounts computed. So let's go ahead and total our 4 types of employer payroll taxes to see what our total employer payroll taxes are. So when we add these together, it's $1,563.30. That is your total employer payroll taxes. Okay, with that information, we can prepare the journal entry. The journal entry will always look similar to the one shown on page 321. You're always going to debit payroll taxes expense for the total of all the taxes. So the total of the 4 employer taxes that you calculate will always be your debit to payroll taxes expense. And then each of the individual calculations, each of the individual taxes will be a credit to the appropriate liability account, to the payable account for that tax. So, with this information, let's come down to our general journal. They said that the date of this payroll was July 15th. So, we will date the entry July 15th. Again, our debit will be to payroll taxes expense for the total that the employer will have to pay. And we calculated that to be $1,563.30. Okay, and then we will, like I said, credit each tax to the appropriate liability account. So our first will be Social Security tax payable for $756.40. So we'll credit Social Security tax payable. I'm abbreviating because this pen does not write very small. Social Security tax payable for $756.30. Okay, and then we will credit our next tax, which is Medicare tax payable for $176.90. then we're going to credit FUTA tax payable for $63. And then lastly, we're going to credit SUTA tax payable for $567. You always double check. Make sure that your debits equal your credits. You will catch many mistakes if you will just double check that. Okay, and then once we have verified that, our explanation, we will enter to record employer. Again, I'm going to abbreviate because this pen does not write small. Employer payroll taxes expense. Okay, and so that is problem 9-1A.